Some more news from Washington. I read that the U.S. is targeting a truce agreement between Ukraine and Russia by April 20th. Yeah. Right. Hey, if people can't find peace on 420, it's never going to happen. That's what I'm saying.
420, little stoner joke, little from the Jimmies. They got, hey, we're going to be stoned, and I don't think they're going to be in Moscow or in, maybe in Kiev they will. Hard to say. They did hire Hunter Biden for $1 million a year. What do you think they got? The guy who smoked crack with D.C. Mayor Marion Barry at a dive in Georgetown while he was in school, all that good stuff. And a very good Tuesday to you. Welcome back once again. We remain at 888-630-9625. The big fake story today, the Democrat story, and it's a dumb moment. There's no doubt about it. A dumb episode. Turns out the Secretary of Defense, National Security Advisor, and others they were on what they call it a chat thread. Is that an app? It's an app called Signal, and they were talking about dropping bombs on the Houthi rebels in Yemen, which they love so much, and a fake reporter named Jeffrey Goldberg, he was somehow looped into the conversation, and he's a left-wing radical extremist, typical Democrat, communist, kill America. He might have taken a break from burning Teslas out there. Was he out there? You think he was involved in? We had another one in Austin, Texas, which is the place in Texas where liberals live. And what do they have? Multiple, what they're calling incendiary devices. That is bombs or Molotov cocktails. The Democrats are bombing things again. You know, they have a long history of bombing things, starting with Fort Sumter, perhaps, and going forward from there. But firebombing and attacking, and they attack police stations and courthouses and firebombing churches, and they love firebombing stuff. And they never go to jail for it, which is kind of an amazing thing. That's Enrique Tarrio of the Proud Boys. He was in Baltimore at a hotel on January 6th, 2021, and they gave him, 22 years in penitentiary for not being there. But if you're one of the Democrats that set the Church of the Presidents on fire, St. John's Church, don't worry about a thing, because you're never going to be arrested. You're never going to be charged. You're never going to be sentenced. You're never going to be sent to prison, because the Democrats, they got your back, and they love arson and firebombing, especially of churches, especially of Church of the Presidents. You know, there's only one of those right across the street from the White House. Set it on fire. Injured 180 police officers, forced the evacuation of the president and the first family. Not a single jail sentence. But never mind that. That's not important now. The news media, because they represent the Democrat Party, they're all over this. The Axios left-wingers, the headline in quotation marks, "Heads should roll." That's the beginning of the headline. Congress erupts over Trump administration Signal leaks. The app is called Signal. And the news media, I can't believe this happened. Of course, there was no problem when Hillary Clinton had 33,000 emails on a server in her basement or wherever it was. And when Joe Biden had stacked up classified documents in his garage next to his Corvette and in an office over a steakhouse on Capitol Hill and in a building in Chinatown. And where else did he have classified documents? They were everywhere. They're all over the place. That was no problem. But these guys were texting about dropping bombs on Yemen, which I believe we telegraphed ahead of time we were going to do, if I remember correctly. Like, hey, look, they just announced they're going to go after the Houthis because they keep shooting at ships headed into the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. You know, I've taken a boat on, not the entire Suez Canal, but a portion of the Suez Canal. It was a very nice day, good day on the Suez Canal. That was fun. There were things going on. That's not important now. But heads should roll. Congress erupts. You mean Democrats. Axios means to say that Democrats, left-wing radicals, extremists who make something out of nothing all the time, and then they lie about it and blow it out of proportion. But I do want to get into this. U.S. Defense Secretary, that's got a C in it, defense, because it's the BBC. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth calls Europe pathetic in airstrike chat, accidentally shared with reporter. And when you give it to the reporter, Jeffrey Goldberg, you might as well give it to the Chinese communist. You might as well give it to the Kremlin. You might as well give it to ISIS and Al-Qaeda, because the Democrat Party, they're much closer to ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Putin and Communist China and North Korea than they are to John F. Kennedy. Let's not exaggerate. Let's just keep it there. But it's true in the back and forth, and it came up. Do we have to? Because it turns out not a lot of American ships are being threatened or hassled, although a couple have been. And the Europeans, they've got an awful lot of trade that goes through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. And once again, we're cleaning up the world for them to make the world better for the Europeans, and they don't have to pay into the defense and all of that. And so the comment is perfectly legitimate in the text thread. I'll get into that. The White House confirms that a journalist was inadvertently added to a secret group chat where senior U.S. officials discussed plans for a strike against the Houthi group in Yemen. Such a nice group, such a nice country, a really lovely place. One day it will be turned to glass, but probably not very soon. The editor-in-chief of the radical left-wing extreme propaganda outlet called The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg is his name, received an invitation to the chat on the Signal app from an account labeled White House National Security Advisor Michael Waltz. That's what it was labeled. And, hey, let's invite Jeffrey Goldberg to join the chat. Now, did Michael Waltz, the National Security Advisor, actually, with his own fingers, invite or add Jeffrey Goldberg from The Atlantic, who is a virulently anti-Trump, anti-Republican fraud of a journalist? He's a Democrat cocktail party wanker who, is a typical Washington, New York, Acela corridor lefty. In the chat, Vice President J.D. Vance seemingly says he hates, quote, bailing Europe out again, end quote, bailing Europe out again. I've got to say, it does get a little boring. 8 decades later, hey, Europe, you guys do anything for yourselves? You know, the Lord loves those that help themselves, helps those that help themselves. And you guys should maybe, it's going to be a century after a little while. Maybe you could start stepping up like adults and helping yourselves, but never mind that. Tired of, he hates bailing out Europe again. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth apparently replies to J.D. Vance with, quote, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic. And pathetic is in all caps, right? And now at the BBC, they don't explain that. They don't explain that the reason they're bringing that up is because they're aware of the fact that Europe depends on the Suez Canal much more than the United States depends on the Suez Canal. And once again, when Europe is being harassed by Houthi troglodytes from a medieval hell slithering out of cracks in the earth, who comes to save the day once again? It's Mighty Mouse, and that's us, because we're the United States of America. And if we don't do it, then nobody will. So we always end up doing it because the Europeans are too busy cheating on their wives and throwing bonbons to the back of their throats and knocking their uvulas around while slurping a not-so-fussy Chardonnay. But that's their thing. And then Pete Hegseth was asked about it, and I have this audio for you. Pete Hegseth, who is alleged to have shared details of military strikes in the chat, tells reporters, nobody was texting war plans. And he's on camera saying that. We've got that coming up for you. But honestly, what are you going to tell them? We're going to use airplanes and ships, and we're going to drop bombs between 1,000 pounds and 2,000 pounds. We're going to hit Houthi targets. Did we give GPS coordinates? And I'm pretty sure Jeffrey Goldberg would give those coordinates to ISIS, and he would give them to the Houthis to try to help them out. But Jeffrey Goldberg, he's just making the rounds of MSDNC and the usual gang of hot tub wankers. And never mind that. I've got that for you coming up. Now, President Trump's national security team chat app. It's a chat app. The leak is a stunning failure, writes our correspondent, BBC correspondent, Anthony Zurcher. I think it's time we just say, you know what, we're gonna leave the Houthis alone. And if the Europeans want to clean up the Houthis and their own shipping and their own commerce, maybe they could do that themselves. Just a thought. So we've got that going. Wah, wah, wah. There is only one topic of conversation at the White House this morning: Signal Gate. Oh, they put a gate on it, so you got to put a gate on it. It's not an official scandal unless you put a gate on it. And you've got Hillary Clinton blathering about it because she's got nothing to do, and she hates everything. She hates the world, and she will never be president, was never going to be president. I predicted years before that she would never be president. I said that she, because of the Satan worship and all that stuff, that she would never be president. And then she went off beheading babies all over the place, something crazy like that. The Associated Press with Hegseth slams journalist after officials text Yemen plans to a Signal group chat. Well, the real mystery here is how Jeffrey Goldberg was added to the chat and by whom. And apparently this Signal chat was set up during the Biden administration, and I smell a rodent of some kind, a sharp-toothed, smelly little rodent. And if this Signal chat was set up before the Trump administration came in, before Pete Hegseth came into the Pentagon, I'm wondering whether some member of the permanent bureaucracy, a deep stater, added this left-winger to the chat in a built-in way in some fashion. And Jeffrey Goldberg at The Atlantic with the headline, "The Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans." That's Jeffrey Goldberg at The Atlantic. So this is the greatest moment of his journalistic life. U.S. national security leaders included me in a group chat about upcoming military strikes in Yemen. I didn't think it could be real. Then the bombs started falling. Not in time for you to leak it to the Houthis because they'd like to meet you, Jeffrey. I know they would. So the world found out shortly before 2 p.m. Eastern time on March 15th. Now that's 10 days ago. What's he been doing ever since? That the United States was bombing Houthi targets across Yemen. I, however, knew 2 hours before the first bombs exploded that the attack might be coming. That's not actually a huge deal. I think a lot of people knew hours before. I worked in the Pentagon for about 10 years for what was then a news organization, and I can assure you, if we were about to strike, typically representing CNN, we would know that military action was coming and have a pretty good handle on what it was going to look like. Military ships, long-range, Navy ships, long-range bombers, whether we had an aircraft carrier and strikes would be coming off the a submarine, would there be Tomahawk land attack missiles, cruise missiles. We would know a lot of this stuff beforehand. Now, Jeffrey Goldberg is another thing because he's an enemy of the state, and he's bragging about it here. I, however, knew about it 2 hours before the first bombs exploded that the attack might be coming. The reason I knew is that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, had texted me the war plan at 11:44 a.m. That's shortly before lunchtime, The plan included precise information about weapons, packages, targets, and timing. It's going to require some explaining, he says, and then he goes on to explain. The story technically begins after the Hamas invasion of southern Israel. That's really going back to the beginning. Actually, it begins with the birth of the Prophet Muhammad, but that's the longer version of the story. Remarkable stuff. So Jeffrey Goldberg found himself as part of this text thread, and he didn't tell anybody. And what did he do with the information? Did you just pass it along to the Houthis and to Hamas? And then he says, now he's writing this yesterday, lunchtime yesterday, but he said he found out on March 15th. What's he been doing with the information since then? And I saw him this morning on Morning Joke. Was he wearing a suicide vest and a Hamas headdress there? Because he might have gone to Columbia University or something. So he got that, and this is causing a hubbub. There's more going on, too. But big stuff. This is big because the Democrats are going to turn it into 100 when it probably belongs at about a 10. But what dummy included this lefty fake journalist on their text thread? And is it a leftover from the Biden administration? Are there members of the permanent bureaucracy in the mix that need to experience a pre-dawn FBI raid with a battering ram and a news camera crew across the street, as happened so frequently during the Biden administration? So we've got that. We've got Elon Musk and Tesla and Doge. Elon at the White House yesterday. There was a cabinet meeting. Remember, Joe Biden never had those. Cabinet meeting at the White House. I think it's the third one in this administration. And the Democrats love child rapists, and they love to let them, especially if they're illegal alien gang members, they love to put them back on the street. That's coming up, too, and we are at 888-630-9625. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. We've got this great. You know, in Massachusetts, the police catch child rapists, and then they discover that they're illegal alien gang members from foreign countries. The police put them in jail, and then the Democrats running the court system say, let them out on bail, $500 bail. This is what the Democrats do because, and when you have, Michael, I know you're bailed out frequently. When you have $500 bail, does that mean you only have to put down 10%, like $50? Is that fair? Do you have to come up with $500 when you have $500 bail? It's been so long, you know. But this is a truly amazing story. The Democrat Party. CBS News actually did the story. The network. Is Massachusetts releasing immigrants charged with violent crimes as Trump border czar claims? As Trump, and notice how CBS frames it as an attack on Trump and attack on Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, who is actually doing something about the border, unlike, remember the border czar in the last administration. That was, who was that, Michael? That was Kamala. That was Kamala Harris. Isn't that absurd? And what was happening with her? Well, she didn't do anything. I think she eventually might have visited somewhere in the neighborhood and got lunch, like a breakfast taco or something like that. But it turns out CBS News had to admit, buried in their own story, some pretty horrendous things. That's coming up. I want to get to this Massachusetts thing where the liberals there love to let child sex abusers back out in this illegal alien in the country illegally, gang members from B-pole countries that come here and sexually assault children. And then the Democrats say, let's let them back on the street because Democrats are mentally unwell. I think that's primarily the thing, is the mental unwellness of the Democrat Party. They're not normal, not good people. And they love crime and criminals. They don't like children. They harvest the organs of children. They like them for the organ harvest, but that's it. And then they parade against Israel and chant from the river to the sea and wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And then they call other people Nazis. Kind of peculiar, I think. They use the words, but they don't know what they mean. All right, let's take a phone call, Michael. Let's go to the nice people. We've got a couple of technical issues today here at the studio, one of which is the microphone that I normally use broke. And when I say the microphone broke, it's the arm that it's on. And so now I'm kind of sitting on a milk crate and using a different microphone that I've got propped up, and I have to keep tweaking the arm. And it's a highly professional operation. So that's good. And we have no call screener today because of scheduling. It's a nationally syndicated radio show. But why would you have a call screener? So Michael Piercy is running from this studio around down the hall to the other studio to go in and try to answer the phones and put them up on the big board and stuff. It's radio. It's kind of an interesting thing. But let's just go to the telephones and talk to the nice people. Let's go to Mike calling from Gainesville, Virginia. Michael, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, good morning, Chris Plante. I thought you all were in a brand new studio with all the technical wizardry.
You are very wise. We are in a brand new studio with all the technical wizardry, and the brand new microphone arms are brand new. They must be made in China by communist, maybe child labor, working their little fingers to nubs, putting the things together. And then here they are. And, it's a very technical world, and a lot of things have to work at once,
All right, my question was along the same lines. Why are all these people, Mike Waltz and Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance, all on Signal instead of talking to each other on a government secure line that's similar to Signal but not run by a private enterprise? I don't understand why there's no secure government system that they can rely on.
That is a fair question. I'm going to go ahead and bet that there is a government system that they could be communicating on, but that for some reason someone set it up on this Signal app, which is a little bit odd. And even that might be fine if someone had not included, and they're claiming that it was the National Security Advisor, his office, Mike Waltz, who's not an idiot, I think. And I've got to say, this is quite a gaffe, isn't it? You have some background in government or in classified things yourself?
No, I'm not claiming that. But I'm just saying Greenberg wouldn't be on there or Goldberg wouldn't be on there if it was a government secure system at all. Waltz wouldn't have that opportunity to make that mistake on a government system. But I think the complaint is that the government system exists, but people don't like it because it doesn't work as well as private enterprise does on these things. It doesn't have the bells and whistles that they can have in the private sector. But, this is what Hillary Clinton did. She set up her own server and email system, and it seems like they all want to have an alternative to the government system because they know the government system is supposed to preserve all the records, but maybe the private system won't.
Well, I have no idea what their thinking might be, but I mean, I've got to say that, Mike Waltz is he's not a schmuck. He is a U.S. Army colonel, Special Forces colonel, served in Afghanistan. He was awarded 4 Bronze Stars for his service in combat. He grew up in the machine. He went to VMI, the Virginia Military Institute. He knows all about it. He's a military guy. He's Special Forces. He's a colonel. He's decorated. He's plenty of time in Afghanistan, and now he's National Security Advisor. So whoever it was that set this thing up has got some splaining to do, I've got to say. And Jeffrey Goldberg, he's gone around, I knew beforehand. Now, honestly, if you were, for example, assigned to actually cover the Pentagon, and I don't think it was any secret, if I remember this correctly, and I believe that I do, we knew even days in advance that the Trump White House said they were going to hit the Houthis in Yemen. So I don't think that was a big surprise. And then beyond that, you pretty much know what the United States is going to do when you hit the Houthis in Yemen. Yeah, bring in ships. You might have an aircraft carrier. Ships can strike with missiles, with cruise missiles and other missiles. And if they fire anything at you, drones or whatever, you've got all kinds of great Sea Whiz, capabilities for shooting down drones and incoming missiles. And you have submarines, and at least one submarine probably with the group. And you have all kinds of capabilities. You have long-range bombers if you decide to go that way. And you know what? If you're the Houthis, you have a pretty good idea of what the United States is going to do to you when you learn that the United States is about to do something to you, because the world has seen it before, and even the Houthis, probably scratched their notes in the dirt somewhere or in a rock somewhere, so they know what it looks like too, right? But none of this is a real mystery, and Jeffrey Goldberg, he's trying to make a big deal out of himself here, and I got to say, Mike Waltz, again, U.S. Army, Afghanistan, 4 Bronze Stars, Special Forces, member of the House of Representatives, and now National Security Advisor. I don't think that he is a slacker by any ordinary definition, right, Mike?
No. It's an interesting mistake. Maybe it was a setup. I'm not sure what it was.
Right.
It's initial. Maybe they'll go back to a system that's more secure and this won't happen again, or maybe they'll stay on signal and keep doing it. I don't know. It's just a strange situation that we have all these IT people in the government, but nobody can set up a system that people want to use. Yeah.
Our government, it's it's the government working as well as the government works, I guess.
That's where we are.
Yeah, that's where we are. Yeah, Michael, thank you. Thank you, buddy. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. I don't think any heads should roll, certainly not at this point anyway. My initial reaction might have been a little more harsh, alarmed, and I wasn't on the air when I found out about it, but in personal exchanges, and I was hearing from smart people saying, these people have to go. What kind of idiots are they? But I don't know the full facts yet. And Jeffrey Goldberg can't be trusted to tell the truth about anything. He's one of them. And who, I don't think, National Security Advisor, Army Colonel Michael Waltz, punched in Jeffrey Goldberg's number. So who did? And where did that come from? How did that happen? Because that is what needs to be explained. Step one, explain that. Now, the left, they're going crazy. They might be self-immolating on Capitol Hill soon, which could be fun. The news media all over it, the Fox News channels, Trump not planning to fire Waltz after national security text chain leak. Well, you might want to, again, find out what happened before you take any extreme action. The left-wing radicals at Axios with the headline, White House defiant after messaging fiasco at The Atlantic. Well, if telling a reporter at The Atlantic makes it a fiasco, then I guess The Atlantic magazine should be barred from all government facilities and prevented. Maybe if they have any White House passes or Capitol Hill passes, maybe they shouldn't, because the mere fact that they were included in the sharing of some information having to do with the military action means that's a fiasco. Then I guess the news media should be viewed as, being pretty much like the Houthis and Hamas. Remarkable things. And Trump not planning to fire Waltz naturally. Now, 22 minutes ago, the frauds at NBC News with Trump stands by National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. They always go by Mike it's not Michael, right? Because they want to be pals with the people they're supposed to be covering. Trump stands by National Security Advisor Mike Waltz despite disclosing military plans, saying he's, quote, learned a lesson. That's 22 minutes ago from the frauds at NBC Fake News. Trump said that even though a journalist from The Atlantic, left-wing radicals, extremists, right, was inadvertently added to a private chat about military plans, his presence had no impact on the military strikes in Yemen. I have no doubt that's true, unless Jeffrey Goldberg is going to reveal to us that he was funneling the information to the Houthis or to Hamas or to Putin, none of which would be entirely shocking, I've got to say. But if that's what he's saying, well, gosh, don't trust me. And I think that is what he's saying is, don't ever trust me. You got to know better than to trust me. You can't trust me. I'm Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic magazine. But President Trump stood by his national security advisor, Mike Waltz, after The Atlantic editor-in-chief. It's editor-in-chief like commander-in-chief, Editor-in-chief was accidentally added to a private high-level chat. It's always a chat. On the messaging app Signal, where military plans were being discussed. And I keep seeing this over and over again, but I haven't seen Waltz telling me or anybody telling me, Jeffrey Goldberg in Atlantic, telling me what's so secret and sensitive about what they were texting about. Now, there were a couple of impolitic things about the Europeans, and I'm fine with that, too, because it's true that, once again, the Europeans are eating bonbons and sipping Chardonnay, while the U.S. military is taking out the threats to our European allies, and they're not doing anything. They're not lifting a finger. So I've got to say, for the American administration, the Trump administration, the Pentagon, Hegseth and Waltz, to be and Vice President J.D. Vance, to be making comments, somewhat snide comments perhaps, about the Europeans resting on their laurels, which we gave them, I think. I'm not upset about that at all. I don't have a problem with them mentioning that the Europeans once again are doing nothing while we're doing everything. I think that should be public. Now, Michael Waltz has learned a lesson, and he's a good man, Trump said Tuesday in a phone interview with NBC Fake News. Trump's comments were his first substantive remarks since The Atlantic broke the story, which detailed how journalist Jeffrey Goldberg was inadvertently added to a group chat on a private messaging app, not too private, where plans for military strikes in Yemen were discussed. Now, the news media is not going to say that it was publicly known that the U.S. Announced that we had intended to strike the Houthis in Yemen. So when asked what he was told about how Goldberg came to be added to the Signal chat, Trump said, "It was one of Michael's people on the phone," meaning Michael Waltz. And notice he calls him Michael and not Mike. But the media, they'll call him Mike. They like to call, like, Jim Clapper, James Clapper. They don't call him James. They call him Jim because they sleep with the people they're supposed to be covering. They want to be pals. They want to go on vacation and go to brunch with. But President Trump said, "It was one of Michael's people on the phone. A staffer had his number on there." I'm going to need more detail than that. The president is obviously paying attention, and he's asked, and he's gotten at least a partial answer. The president expressed confidence in his team, saying he was not frustrated by the events leading up to the Atlantic story. The situation, Trump said, was the only glitch in 2 months, and it turned out to not be a serious one. And I think that's true. I mean, if it didn't interfere, and, unless Jeffrey Goldberg is going to reveal that he did share the information with all the communists and jihadis around the world, and then went back to burning Teslas at a dealership in Austin or something like that, which the Democrats, again, incendiary devices discovered by the bomb squad police, Austin, Texas, at a Tesla dealership. And that's because the Democrat Party is a terrorist organization. And I got to tell you, if we ban the Houthis from coming into the country, maybe we should ban the Democrat Party from coming into the country. When Democrats leave the country on a plane or a ship or something, maybe they should be identified as part of a terrorist organization and not allowed back into the country. They should be deported to California. We should force them all to stay in California. Fly them out there. Aren't they amazing? Yes, they are. The Atlantic story sent shockwaves across Washington on Monday. Democratic lawmakers demanded answers from the White House. They're trying to turn it into something that it's not because they're shameless charlatans and frauds. Al Sharpton is one of them, in fact. In multiple letters, with one from the group of Senate Democrats calling the situation, quote, an astonishingly cavalier approach to national security. I'm sorry, aren't you the guys with the Afghanistan withdrawal? Wasn't that you? And isn't it true that when Joe Biden came into office, there was no war in Europe and no war in the Middle East, and the world was pretty much at peace? And there was a fun one today. My friend Brian Doherty sent it along with the Twitter, people on Twitter, They posted video of a C-17 taking off from Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, or from the Kabul airport. And as the plane is taking off and Afghans are running after the plane that's in the air, a man falls to his death from the airplane while it's taking off. And it's kind of fun stuff because Educated Hillbilly says, really? Really? It's not dropping people from planes bad, but it's not good. And I have more brand new updates for you coming right up. I'm holding up the big microphone arm They keep pushing up, won't stay in place. Deluxe equipment. Who made this deluxe equipment? I'm using the brand name here. Is that Mika? No wonder. Like Mika Brzezinski or something. Yellow Tech. Oh, that Yellow Tech. That doesn't work very well. All right, let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Matthew, calling from the great state of South Carolina. Matthew, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, good morning, Chris. How are you?
Just great, Matthew. What do you say? What do you know?
So I'm listening to your broadcast almost every morning, as I do if I have time between what I have to do. And I'm listening to this story about Shifty Goldberg from The Atlantic. And he comes out as he has a set of cojones where he basically says, I informed the administration of the security leak because I'm concerned about the security of the United States, and then goes on ahead to publish it as his bombshell story in The Atlantic. Now, it may be because I'm from South Carolina, but to me, you didn't do anybody a favor.
Yeah. What should he have done?
How can you graft a power, a giant story and get yourself street cred with the fake news media, and then also said, hey, but I'll let the administration know because I'm an American.
Yeah, right. It's fake feigning patriotism 10 days later. What had he done? And, if he saw, hey, wait a minute, how did I find myself in the loop on this thing? Apparently my number has been added, and you're a fake reporter. Of course, you're going to stay quiet and see what you can collect from that. But, this guy is the fake reporter who came up with that story that President Trump called our war dead in Europe losers and suckers. That's Jeffrey Goldberg. That's what he's famous for.
There's 99% of what I try not to watch on the fake news media. You're about the only source that really I can 100% factually trust.
Well, that is very nice to hear, and it's true, too, and I'm doing my darndest every single day.